Welcome to the Imagination Factory. I'm Sarah,
I'm Keith.
and we are going to be finishing up our lizard western that we've been working on for the past little bit.
So our characters Leonard and Pip, and we've used them interchangeably.
I know, and I don't know why it's so complicated for
So
us.
here we go. This is what we had done initially. So Leonard's actually the lizard and Pip, but we can do it the other way. I think we decided that we like Pip as the lizard. So
yeah, because it's a bit backwards. Like it does make more sense that it's Leonard the lizard, but we've been calling him Pip, so Pip it is.
yeah, exactly. It just kind of goes against type, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that when you are thinking about like archetypes for characters, like the silent, deadly, anti-hero, or your comedic type of character, whatever. I always like when it plays against what you think they're going to be like, or they're a little bit more nuanced in character versus just like a stereotype of a character. So yeah, if we have Pip as this lizard that's kind of pretty, ornery, and we've got Leonard who's I don't know, maybe the more practical. We haven't really figured out what their personalities are exactly, but going from the fact that for whatever reason we've got Leonard riding on the back of Pip letting him do it.
Yeah.
That kind of gives us a sense of the relationship, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And it is kind of like Leonard the grasshopper is pulling the strings, right? Like he lets Pip have his moment. He lets him stretch his beard and, have a bit of attitude. But at the end of the day, he's the one that calls the shots. He's the one that ends the fight. He's small but mighty.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe a bit quiet too. Like
Yeah.
and we really only have what we've created so far between the initial illustration and this to go on with their characters. We haven't really developed them much further than like whether they're anti-heroes, or are they the bank robbers like we had said they might be, or
Exactly. Exactly. What happened right before this little showdown, right? Who got into whose territory? We haven't specified that. And I mean, my mind immediately is rooting for Leonard and Pip because they're a little tag team with the little guy. But maybe it's Fernando we should be rooting for, that he's the one that's being picked on by this team. I think the fact that we caught them in the middle of the action kind of leaves it open to interpretation a little bit.
yeah. At this point, what I'm doing is I'm trying to figure out like what the values are for the characters and for the setting, and also like um, thinking about like lighting and stuff like that. Thankfully, I drew that sun that's in the, I guess you can say it looks like it's either rising or setting. I'm not sure which one it is, but it looks like it's a hot kind of sun. So I feel like the characters are going to be a bit backlit because they're directly, the sun is facing towards us. That means they're going to be somewhat backlit. But that gives us one indication of where light's going to be coming from. But then, I'm just going to try to block in like the values right now, so that I know, generally, like what's what's the lightest, what's the darkest, and it'll give a sense, hopefully, when you look at it, that there's like variety in value. That's one thing that I always try to think about when I'm doing any kind of, well, the reason why I do it this way really is because it gives me a really quick sense of like, okay, this is the value of the all the different characters in the setting, and nothing's blending together so that you can't tell what's in the foreground, midground, and background, right? That's always really kind of important to figure that stuff out. And so if you have something like, so for example, as a case in point, like right now, it looks like the characters are blending in with their, the surface, the ground that
Hmm.
they're on. And so of course color will differentiate, but you really, if you want something to kind of pop a bit, like in the foreground or wherever your focal point is, you want to make sure that there's a variety of different value. And when I say value, just for people that aren't sure what I'm talking about, you can see on the side there, I've got like grayscale, and
Hmm.
that's what I mean by value. It's, you got anything from 5 to, 100%, or you've got white and then 5% gray to 95% gray, and then you've got black on
Right.
the other end, right? And so I like to start somewhere around like in the mid range of values,
Hmm.
and then what I'll do is, as I said, they're backlit, so they're going to be, even though they're value, their basic value may be more in the mid range. Once they're backlit, they're going to be much darker. So it'll start to make a little bit more sense, I think, once I start to lay this out a little bit more. But yeah, I do this, uh, and another way of looking at it could be like calling it like flattening the color. Um, which is something that is a term used in comic books where really all you're doing is you're just finding all the basic shapes of whatever you're drawing and then putting some kind of color to them. And again, you can, I think I'm just doing it a step further, or a step in the earlier part. Somebody who may be adding color at this point, like flattening it out with color, they're still going to need to see whether or not the values are going to be
Right.
popping the way they want. So what they may do is they may go from a saturated to a desaturated. So a color to removing color. And you can do that in Photoshop by just like, there's like, ways here, for example, go into hue and hue saturation, and you can see that there's
Hmm.
hue, which are essentially the different, your Roy G. Biv, your rainbow, and then saturation, which is going from having a lot of color to all the way to my right, to no color all the way to the left, right? Right now
Hmm.
it's right in the center there. And then lightness and darkness, which, that's just more or less light and dark, right? So right now I'm kind of in the midst, the stage with the saturation or value, which is right now it's desaturated, so there's no color, uh, other than the grayscale colors, right?
So when you decide to start adding colors for the different characters, do you tend to, like in a situation like this, would you assign a certain palette to each character? So like let's say, Pip is very much in like the greens and Fernando's in the reds and Leonard's in like, blues or oranges or something like that. Like within that space, you can kind of differentiate them, or do you just kind of go with your feelings in the moment and what works, or do you think of it in terms of that?
Um, so the thing about color is you've got two different things happening with color. You've got your like native, or the thing, like if there's a absence of light,
Hmm.
um, you still have something that is that color, whatever it is, it's still great. You just can't see it. But
Right.
it's still like, plants are still, just
Yeah.
because you have an absence of light, plants are going to be like a green,
Hmm.
right? Because as soon as you shine a light on it, that's what it is.
Green's
It's,
gonna come up.
so it's their basic color. But now here's the thing. Let's say you've got, when you do have light shining on a plant, all of a sudden you can start it almost looks like yellows, or you may see,
Hmm.
if there's like, because it's somewhat translucent, you may have whatever's behind it coming
Hmm.
through. And also the way that color works is essentially they're like wavelengths. So when they bounce, um, either bounce or absorb into something, they'll cause the thing to have the color or not color, right? So you may have like, like if you have a good example is if you have like a red light, all of a sudden
Mhm.
something that's a native green all of a sudden looks like a dark blackish, right? Like
Mhm.
it changes the way things look. So, depending on the kind of light you have shining, kind of objects you have around it, uh, if you have like environmental particles, right? So if you have some like something in the air that's causing like that's what happens when you have sunset and sunrise. You have all of the like
Absolutely.
pollution basically causing those
Yeah.
beautiful colors, right? So all of those things are going to influence like whatever the native or basic color is of something.
Right.
Um, so if you have like, so that's one part of color theory. And then the other part is like you're creating like you either going to want an emotional
Mhm.
feeling of something or you want to be put in that place really quickly. Is it hot? Is it cold? So if it's hot, you may want everything to have like a yellowish hue to it, cause that, or reddish hue, cause that kind of connotates like hot and heat. If something's cold, everything's kind of bluish, right?
Yeah.
All of that kind of can determine, um, like your color scheme that you're going to use to what you're asking. So even if, let's say, we've got, Fernando, who's, let's say he's like a reddish tinge, but we've got, um, the sun beating down on all of them. They all may have some kind of yellow light that connects them
100%.
together color wise. And also the darkness of being backlit may make it so that you really have a hard time seeing a lot of that red. You may only see like some of the red, with the yellow, right? So, you have that aspect, or if you want to make it feel, if you want them to kind of connect together, in
Mhm.
ways, you may want to think about having color schemes that are very similar to each other. So like there's all different things you can do. And the colors can change. As I said, if they go inside, all of a sudden now it feels like they're all bluish colored because it now feels, like the light isn't
Yeah.
necessarily coming from the outside. It may be coming from a light bulb that causes a slightly different shadow color, right? So there's all different factors that are going to be at play. When I'm doing color, um, and the way I render color is going to be different from project to project.
Right.
For like the sake of time on this, I may just like use what I would say is like an airbrush type of
Mhm.
color, which you'll see when I'm talking about it, or you'll see what I mean when I um, get to it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, there's just so many different aspects to color that it's really depend. Like our Christian County,
Mhm.
we wanted to make the color not super saturated, super
Yes.
colorful. We wanted it to feel a little bit um, desaturated, so the color scheme reflects that a bit. Um, and then I've done other stories where I have been doing something super saturated. And then, if you have a story where it's like, a monotone, you just may have everything in blue, but it's all
Right.
variations of blue. Right. So, yeah, it's just going to be, um, very dependent on what kind of story you're trying to tell and, like how you want the audience to feel as they're looking at something. Um, and then also you want it to be clear. You want it to be understandable that, what they're looking at, like where their eye is going to go is,
Mhm.
um, a certain way. If you make something that's really important and you want it to be seen, but if it blends in because the value system is very similar to like the
Yeah.
background, right? Like if you have like like a vase that's like the same value as the um it's like the paint of the wall, and maybe the vase is like a light yellow and the wall is like
Hmm.
cream color, like it's not going to necessarily stand
You're
out
gonna lose it.
per se,
Yeah.
right? It could be, or if it's like, yeah, or mint green or something, like it could be
Yeah.
very hard to see the thing, right? So you want, if in that situation, you may want to pop it with like some bright color in there, like some reds or purples, so people, their eyes
Right.
going to go to it. And they may not know why their eyes going to it initially, but they'll know because they'll know that it's an important thing because they can see it very clearly. But on the other side, let's say you make a lot of red in there, then people are just going to not, it's, they're not going to see that vase again, right? Because it's all going to have very similar, right? So but then, like you could always argue too, like if you want to have a theme with like, a character who, like, let's say it's a Spider-Man,
Hmm.
that wears a red and blue and you want the room, to subliminally get across that that's Spider-Man, you would have reds and blues throughout, right? So there
Right.
are things you can do that would, um, the reader may not, or they may notice it, but it may just be kind of, oh, that's kind of a cool little
Hmm.
effect that they do, right? That they're making, um, like they're planning those things, so that it's like a little bit of like uh, like a wink, wink, a nudge, nudge to the audience, going, that's Peter Parker, as
Hmm.
Spider-Man, but that friend doesn't know that that they're Spider-Man, but you see all that
Yeah.
red and blue all over, so you're like, that's kind of interesting, right?
No, for sure. And I mean, color is such a powerful tool. Right? Like, it can do so much. It gives you emotions immediately, like, by looking at characters, depending on their color schemes, the value, there's so many things that can make you feel, like, sorry for them or, like, this guy's a bad guy or whatever, just based on the color choices without knowing anything else about them. And I think you make so many good points about how little decisions impact so many things. Like, they impact how people read it, how they look at it, where their eye goes, what they notice, what they don't notice, what you don't want to take somebody out of it by doing something that is so strange unless that's the point of it, right? Like, if
Yeah.
you did do a plant pink, people are going to be like, well, that's immediately, I'm going to notice that because it's strange, but maybe there's a really good reason you did that because they had to notice that pink plant. So it seems simple, which the best things always seem simple but are hard to do, right? Like, it's such a, you just look at it like, oh, it's colored, but there's a lot of thought that goes into choosing, placing, all that kind of stuff to make it feel effortless.
Yeah, for sure. And like, so for example, with Leonard and Pip, what I like to do with characters that are very connected with each other, I like to make like use similar palettes for each other,
Right.
for the characters, so that like that they're connected, right? So they may have, I think, um I did that with the original,
Yes.
right? So you can
Yep.
see there's a bit of
They're matching hats.
greens, and then you've got some more greens, and you
Mhm.
know, and well, again, now we're calling the grasshopper Leonard. So Leonard has like the yellows in the front in their beak, and there's a bit of like a tinge of yellow,
Yes.
right? So like it's not they're there's a similar, yes, there is a similar color scheme between the two of them to make them connected. But I mean, that's also, I don't know anything else about them. So, like if we
Uh-huh.
wanted to make them feel more opposite, right, then I would lean into like very, maybe, a different, like I wouldn't necessarily use complementary. I might, but I mean, using colors that are just like very different from each other. Like maybe one is more red, one's more blue. So you get like a sense of like their emotional states, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I like there are a lot of things you can do that can give the characters like a emotional state without even having to say anything about them, right?